Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear?
Easy, Ted. Why are you so mad? Actually, it's for good reason.
We realize we need to earn trust more. We realize that more accountability is needed to show our intentions and to show the outcomes. We want to fix it with more transparency.
Today, Congress held hearings on the Section 230 free speech controversy. The outcome of these hearings could have a massive effect on our free speech, yours and mine, online. Today, we're going to talk about what is Section 230, why is it important, and how can we work together to protect free speech online. Hi, I'm Ian Corzine, your social media lawyer. I'm just a lawyer looking for the truth on social media. The Communications Decency Act, Section 230, is the most important law globally for free speech online. If there is no Section 230, there is no free speech, period. Why do I say that? Section 230 is American law, and no other countries, including countries in Europe, Japan, Canada, none of these countries have a law similar that has as many protections for free speech online as Section 230. Now, some of the most popular social media platforms are in America, so users in other countries get the benefit of Section 230 when they use social media that's American-based. Because of this, America is often referred to as the safe haven for controversial and experimental communication, what I call free speech, and we have to keep this going. So what is Section 230? Section 230 is a law that gives immunity to social media platforms for the false statements of their users. Now, why does this particular rule protect free speech? This is how I explain it. Think of a situation where there was no Section 230 immunity. And let's say we had a user of YouTube and he made a video which damaged the reputation of another YouTuber. Well, what would happen if there was no Section 230 is the YouTuber who had the damaged reputation would sue not only the YouTuber that made the false statement, but he would also sue YouTube for carrying that false statement. That's if we didn't have Section 230 immunity. In other words, if there was no Section 230, both the YouTuber that made the reputation damaging statement and YouTube could be brought into court by the harmed YouTuber, and those two entities, both the YouTuber that made the statement and YouTube, could be made by the court to pay money to the damaged party. Now, if these lawsuits were filed a lot, and I can tell you that if there was no Section 230, they would be filed quite a bit because YouTube has a lot of money, then YouTube would think about it. They would be discouraged from having more and more user content on their platform. They would not want to risk the liability for that content. They would not want to be sued by people who were harmed by content that they really didn't have any control over that was posted to their social media site. They just wouldn't want to take the liability of being sued thousands of times per day. And think about it. If YouTube was discouraged from having user-generated content on the platform, then our free speech rights would be severely limited, if not barred. We would not get the benefit of the huge 2 billion person YouTube audience or Facebook or Instagram. Basically, our free speech rights would end online. And it's especially concerning given what's happened in the last 8 months. You know, we don't have the freedoms we used to have to be able to go to the park and to have rallies and to do in-person talks and to get opinions out there, get new thought out there. The only avenue we have right now, at least for the time being, is online free speech. And so if there was no Section 230, our free speech rights would be drastically curtailed. Under the current state of the law, Section 230 protections actually encourage free speech online because the users of the social media platforms are the only people that can be held accountable for their own statements. There is no fancy vicarious liability. No, it actually makes sense. If you said something that damages someone else, you should be held liable, not Instagram. However, There is one little tricky second part to Section 230, which threatens to take away all the free speech that the first part of Section 230 provides. Section 230 allows social media companies to virtually pick and choose what they want on the platform. Now, you may say, listen, what's wrong with that? Social media companies are private sector corporations. They should have a right to control what type of content they're going to allow on their servers, right? You know, the problem comes in with censorship and misinformation. If a social media platform has the power to censor, to silence voices on a given subject, then that social media platform has the power to control what people think. The same is true with wrong information, or what we refer to as misinformation. For example, let's say Facebook decided that they didn't want any discussion of Joe Biden on their platform. Then Facebook would have a hand in electing Donald Trump. And the worst part is, under Section 230, Facebook could not be sued for this fraudulent conduct. Do you see the tension here? The tension between our free speech rights and the rights of the social media platforms to control what's on their servers. Let me know in the comment section below. Now you know why Section 230 is so important to the world's free speech. You know what Section 230 is, you know how it works. But the next question is, how do we fix Section 230 to reconcile this tension? And that was the subject of today's congressional hearing.
Some of you don't trust we're acting in good faith. That's the problem I want to focus on solving.
I actually believe that Republicans and Democrats can now agree on something, at least as it relates to Section 230. Section 230 gives social media platforms too much power with too little accountability. They differ in the amount of power that the social media platforms have to put content out into the internet. I mean, the Republicans say the social media platforms remove too much right or conservative talk online, and the Democrats actually say the social media platforms don't remove enough of election disinformation or harassment or hate speech. But what is their solution to the CDA 230 problem? They don't have one yet. But the heads of social media have proposed solutions. Here's what Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook suggested.
I think that Congress should update the law to make sure that it's working as intended. One important place to start would be making content moderation systems more transparent.
Make social media content moderation more transparent. What does this mean? Well, it could mean that social media platforms could be ordered, or there could be a law that's passed that requires them to disclose to all of us what content they delete from the platform. So for example, if Twitter is deleting content about Hunter Biden, then later on in time, we as the public could access and see what stuff was deleted from Twitter. It could also mean requiring social media platforms by law to publish a report, maybe quarterly, of the stuff that they delete from the social media platform. You know, now Facebook says that they're already doing this kind of, but it's not really true. What Facebook is doing is it's producing to all of us the standards by which they judge material on the platform. It's not actually, they're not telling us exactly what they're deleting, which is probably more important.
Another would be to separate good actors from bad actors by making sure that companies can't hide behind Section 230 to avoid responsibility for intentionally facilitating illegal activity on their platforms.
Make social media liable for intentionally facilitating illegal activity on the platform. What is this? I believe it's a non-statement. The bottom line is, under the current state of the law, Section 230, social media platforms get immunity for the content of their users, but they don't get immunity if they actively and intentionally commit a crime. So I believe that Zuckerberg's statement here really doesn't make sense, or it's kind of irrelevant for people who really understand the inner workings of Section 230 like you now. Another possible solution is to change the law so that social media platforms could be sued if they fail to remove hate speech or other harassing content from their platform. This is actually the solution that was proposed by that ex-presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke. The Justice Department has also weighed in on the CDA 230 controversy. They said maybe the law should be changed so that the social media platforms get their immunity only if their removal of content complies with their terms of service and there is a reasonable explanation for the removal of that content. I don't think that's going to be workable. I think any prominent person with a lot of money who's been censored by social media will just go ahead and sue, let's say, YouTube, and he will allege that not only was the removal of his content not compliant with the terms of service, but also it was unreasonable. So this is not going to be really a workable solution because YouTube and all the social media platforms are probably going to be sued anyway. Others have said, why don't we just take away immunity from the social media platforms? They say, why don't we just have a world in which every person who contributed to harmful messages could be civilly liable for them? I'll tell you why not. Because if Section 230 were gone, then the huge multinational media corporations would control the narrative of our lives. There would no longer be our content on the internet, just theirs. I think this is the death of free speech as we know it, but as always, I'm open to your thoughts. What do you think we can do with the Section 230 free speech controversy? How can we reconcile the interests of our free speech online with the legitimate interests of social media platforms controlling what is on their servers? Let me know in the comments section below. And on a lighter note, I'd love to hear from you on this question about whether or not people can use other people's video clips or audio clips without permission, use them in their own videos, and then make money off them. That's exactly what comedian Sarah Cooper did with Donald Trump's speeches. If you want to learn more about this controversy, watch right here. And as always, as you watch, I'm going to be at iancorzine.com to answer any and all of your social media law questions.